Hello students, we're back for part 2 of the third lesson, which is pop-up cards, and we are doing New Bedford historical buildings and homes in mainly downtown New Bedford. Okay, we talked about this before. I gave you a little homework where you can go and research buildings, historic buildings in downtown New Bedford. And when we go for our field trips, as I said in part 1, we usually pass these buildings, okay? Some of them we've pointed out and we've talked about it. You know them, you've seen them. So I want you to choose. So today you should have had your pictures of whichever building you wanted to use. So you just choose one building, one historic building, okay? Good, so we're gonna have a historic building. And I had shown you this one that I did of the double bank. I have a photo here. I didn't want to cut out my photo, so I drew one. Okay? Now you are going to have to look and see what size your background is. So we did the backgrounds yesterday. We took paper, folded it. You remember that? Part 1, I mean, not yesterday, part 1. We folded it, and then we use pastels, oil pastels, and I showed you how to use the oil pastels in an effective way, one color over the other. And you can do it opaque, so it's dark and vibrant, one color over the other. You hardly see any of the white paper underneath, or you can do it in a way where it's lighter and you can see some of the white paper underneath. And what that does, it gives a nice texture. So it's really up to you how you would like to use it. I also said you can do paint if you want, color pencils, crayons, but I wanted to focus on oil pastels because we haven't really focused on oil pastels before. The last lesson we did, we used oil pastels, but very briefly, we did it for resist technique, which was when the watercolor pulled away from the oil pastels. Okay, so water and oil don't mix and they pull away, and that was called resist. But I wanted to do it in this way so you can see how you can apply the oil pastels in a different way. So many art materials are very versatile and you can use them in different ways. Okay, good. So let's begin. You have your building, and hopefully you drew it or you cut it out, you printed it and cut it out, and then you have it. So I have my double bank here. I outlined it in black, and I also put in the oil pastels in gray and white, because this is the color of the building. It's white, a white building. You know, with the shadows, it has grays in it. As you can see, it says Best Bank here. The building, the original name was Double Bank. All right, Best Bank was the company that moved in there. All right, so let's begin. So this is a really interesting part because now I'm going to show you how you're making the pop-up version. What are you going to do to make this pop-up, right? To have this and it pops out of this card. And it's a little tricky, but you have to pay attention and think about the mechanics of it and how it works, okay? So let's begin. I'm going to turn this down so that you can see exactly what I'm doing. Okay, so I'm going to use this background. I have a few of them here. I have some with paint here. It's another one with paint. Okay, so I'm going to do this one. This is the background that I'm going to use for my double bank. All right, first step. Now, we are going to cut the back here. But before we do that, I need to measure, all right? We are not just going to cut willy-nilly. We are going to make 2 cuts, straight and even. They must be even. But I don't want to cut too wide, and I've learned this the hard way, because when it pops up, my building or image, will overlap like this, and I don't want that to happen for you. Sometimes in art, you have to learn, you know, you make mistakes and you learn. You don't want that. You want it to be enclosed. But when you just have it there, you know, you don't know, you're estimating. So I like to put it on the outside, make sure it's right at the tip, and I'm gonna make 2 lines. As you can see, I did it in pencil. I'm gonna do it here. 2 points here. Now it could be the width of it or just a little inside, okay? And I'm gonna do a straight line. You can use a ruler for this. I'm confident in my straight lines. All right, do you see this? Pay close attention. I put my double bank image here, making sure it's not overlapping. I make 2 points within the width, and I make lines, 2 lines down. So I'm gonna move this. So this is what we have. We are gonna then take our scissors and cut on those lines. I want you to be very careful when you're cutting the lines, because guess what? They must be even. They must be even. If you have one line longer than the other, what's gonna happen is that the pop-up is gonna be crooked. It's not gonna work as well, okay? So I take my scissors, I follow my line. I go nice and steady, straight, stop right at that point. Nice and steady, straight, stop right at that point. Now you notice I'm not cutting across, just 2 straight lines, that's it. Okay, here's the tricky part now. So I'm gonna turn it this way that I open, right? All right, pay close attention. I'm gonna open it and I'm gonna take my fingers in the back and pop out. You seeing this? Pop out that area. When it pops out, you wanna make a crease here and a crease at the top. The crease at the bottom and a crease at the top. Watch me closely. Okay, behind I'm creasing and on top I'm creasing until it eventually closes down and I can crease both of them at the same time. I can crease both of them at the same time and look at this. Boom, look at my pop. Look at my pop-up. Okay, let's do that again. I'm flattening it out, so just to walk through it again. We had our 2 lines, okay? We had our 2 lines. We then pop the back, push our fingers through the back, pop it through. And then make sure you crease the top and you crease the bottom together. Okay, you'll have to practice and see how that can happen, or you can get help, you can ask for help. But try and see, as soon as you pop it out, you're gonna realize that you need to make a crease at the bottom of where that line stops and a crease at the top. And you kind of crease it with your fingers, you bring both down and they can both crease together. Okay, so I hope you understood and got that. So now we have our little card that stands up. That's why it's good to have like a sturdier paper so it can stand up like this. And then I have a surface that I can glue my double bank on. Now, do you notice I did it a little smaller than the double bank so I wouldn't see this part protruding on the sides. So what do? I put glue here, right here. So I can fold it back down because I creased it enough. So it'll come back. So I'll just put it flat like this and I'm gonna put my glue. I'm gonna put some on my paper as well to ensure. Right on that crease, I stick it down. Now, do you notice that I did not put glue entirely on my double bank building because I don't want the top to glue onto the back. So look what happens. Press it down, ta-da! So when this closes, look at this, and you pop it open. Of course, when you close, you have this, this negative space that's cut out. So that's not gonna be your card, obviously. We're gonna put a cover over that, but we're gonna deal with that later. Right now, we're continuing with our pop-up. So we open the pop-up, and now you could just have fun with this. You can add other things. You can add things to the sky. Okay, let's say I want to do birds in the sky. So I can always flatten it back down. I go in with my pastels, oil pastels, because that's what I'm using. I'm going to use the black oil pastels. Remember we talked about the smaller the bird, it gives the illusion it's further away. The larger gives the illusion that it's closer up. So I have birds there, okay? So you can leave it like that, or you can add a few more things, just make it fun. In the past, we had students that would take tissue paper, different colored tissue paper, ball it up, just pieces of it, ball it up and glue it down, and it'll be like flowers. Or they made a pathway, you know, drew a pathway, or even cut it out with paper and stick it so it looks like there's a pathway to the house or to the building. You can do what you want. I would like to show you how you can do another pop-up just like this on the side, and we can do something else there, okay? So I have something drawn out and cut already. You know, in downtown New Bedford, what I love is certain streets have these old-fashioned lamps, okay? The old-fashioned lamps. And now we have electricity, but when we learned about whaling back in the 1800s, these lamps, these are just replicas of the old-fashioned ones, but the real old-fashioned ones back in those days used whale oil, right? Used whale oil, and then you'd have the flame coming off. So you'd have, that's what they use for light, okay? We learned that. So I wanted to put in one of these and add it in, okay? So you see how thin this is. So that means the part that you're gonna cut will be very thin as well. I'm gonna do the same thing, close it down, kind of measure so that when I close it, my lamp is not gonna hang out. I don't want it to close and it's hanging off like this. So that's why I put it here. Make sure it's at the edge. Good. I'm gonna take my pencil. I'm gonna use a marker just so that you can see. Straight lines, 2 straight lines. And I made it short because I measured it, so I don't want it to overlap. Good. I take my scissors. Now this is a skinny one, it's a small one. I would suggest, if you're not comfortable with that, use something that's a little thicker so you'd have a thicker area. We're gonna do the same thing, push in, use my finger and push in. Close down, press down. And so look at my tiny little pop-up. Look at my tiny pop-up right here. I have the big one with my building, my historic building, and I have the little one. Look at that little one. Ah, okay, now I'm ready to glue. Glue just on the bottom half, just on the bottom half. You don't want to glue the whole thing because when it closes it down, it's going to stick to the top. So you're just going to put glue where you're going to put it on the pop-up area. I sometimes like to close it down and then press, 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 press. Ooh, look at that. Isn't that lovely? And then you can just start adding more things. Now you can add things, as I told you, on the surface, and it depends on how much space you have. I can add something else here. I can add another pop-up. So feel free. I want you to do one historic building, but then you can have a couple other pop-ups. Think about what pop-ups you want, okay? Do we want a tree? I have a tree, or I have some shrubs. Let's do a tree. Let's do a tree. Okay. So, I have a drawing here of a tree. I'm just going to outline it in black just so that you can see. You have your branches, your thin branches, and your tree trunk. Okay? And then I'm just going to do a squiggly line for the leaves. Good. Brown. I'm gonna do a lighter brown and a darker brown of my oil pastels. Seeing? All right. Okay, I'm going to do the greens. Now I can use different greens. I put one on top of the other or next to each other. I can go light, I can go dark like I showed you, right? Look at that green, then I'm going to put a lighter green right over. I'm going to have one side of the tree appear to be lighter and one side appear to be darker. Okay? So there you have it. I have my tree, my simple tree. Now when I drew it, I made sure that it wouldn't overlap. Okay? So now I'm going to cut it out. So there's my tree. Here we go. I just go in and out with the scissors, just to give like a bumpy effect, and it's not like a lollipop. You don't want a smooth line around, okay? There we go. My little tree. And we go again. I'm not just going to randomly cut. I'm going to measure it, bring it here, to make sure it's not going to hang over, and then I make my two lines, two straight lines. If you can't make a straight line, use your ruler, please. Okay, right. Scissors, and we're going to cut those straight lines. One. Be very careful when you're doing this, because, you know, if one line goes over, much over, then it's not going to be equal, okay? So you remember what we did? Take your finger and push through, and then you're going to press it down. While you press it down, you're pressing down the 2 points. And so you have another little pop-up. Show it at the angle, you can see it there. Look at that pop-up. Good, that's gonna be for our tree. Turn this over, and you're gonna put glue just on the bottom half, the bottom part of the trunk. We can flatten it out again when you want to stick something. Right. Remember, we're not putting glue in the whole thing. If it pushes down like that, just take your finger and pop it back out. Okay. Now, this is a good example because this paper I used to draw was thinner than the others. You see how it's flapping like that? So you want to think about how tall something is and how sturdy it is, okay? So maybe you want a thicker page. So it's good for these things to happen so you know, so you can avoid for it not to happen. That's how we learn, all right? So what I'm gonna do with that, I'm just gonna cut it shorter. If I cut it shorter, then hopefully it won't flop as much. The longer it is, it'll flop. This one is tall and slender and it's not flopping. Why? Because the material I used, the paper I used was a little thicker, and this too is a little thicker, right? When I drew this, I used another page. Didn't realize, and then I used, but it was too tall. So I cut it to make it shorter, right? So that was a good lesson there for you to see. Great, so that is my double bank. Look at that. All right, before we finish this part, because I'm gonna go and come back for part 3 when we put the outer part of the card, because we can't have a card like this. You can't give a gift card with all these holes, okay? Because I'll show you how to cover that. But to finish this up, and this is what we always do. This is how we learn things and we remember things that we've learned in this program. Remember, the program is called Exploring My City Through Art. So we're learning about the historic buildings in New Bedford, and what I want you to do is research the building. Now, you don't have to do a lot of research. Don't get scared. All you have to do is Google it, look it up, okay? I gave you pictures of some of the buildings and the names of them. You choose one and then you look it up. And all I want is like 1 or 2 sentences, just for you to remember, and anybody that you share this with will learn. You are teaching people, you are teaching your family, right? And you're learning yourself. So I have information here on double back that I wrote out nicely. So you write in your best handwriting. You can write in pen, or if you feel comfortable with the pencil, you can. And you say a little bit about this, okay? Very simple. You can just do 1 sentence if you want, but please just tell us a little bit about it. So this one for double bank, I have here. The double bank was built in 1833 and it was restored in 1971. This building housed 2 banks, not 1, 2. Many people just say, it's a bank. It was a bank. It was a bank. But it had 2 banks. The merchant bank on the right for the wealthy, and the mechanics bank on the left, used by everyone else. So you may not have known that fact about the double bank, or maybe you did, but a lot of people don't. So this is how you teach people about your city. You teach people about New Bedford, the interesting histories. A lot of people don't know the history. And I know you learn so much from this program, and you go home and you share it with your siblings, your parents, your guardians, right? So I want you to do that. Glue it down. You can glue it in the middle, right side, left side, up to you. But this is how you're going to present. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? That is really beautiful. And then I'm telling you, you can add more things. As I said, the crumpled up tissue paper. You can cut out different collage things and stick it on, just on the surface. You already have 3 pop-ups, okay? So you have 3 pop-ups, okay? So I just showed you how you can do extra pop-ups here, but this is your main one. The building is your main one. Isn't that lovely? Good. Let me show you another exercise, another example. Hello. Good. So this is the double bank that we did. That looks really nice with the sunset sky, the green for the land and grass, okay? Our old-fashioned lamp, our double bank, and our tree. And then we have a little bit of information about that building. So I'm going to show you another example. I showed you Polly and Nathan and Polly Johnson house that I had cut out, that I had and I cut out. And I did the same thing. This is my first pop-up, and this is my tree. Okay, I did 2 pop-ups. I put birds in the sky, and I could add other things to the flat. And then I have some information here, and I'm going to read it to you. The Nathan and Polly Johnson house was Frederick Douglass's first free home after escaping from slavery. It is located on 21 7th Street, New Bedford, and was owned by abolitionists Nathan and Polly Johnson. We usually do a whole segment at the National Park about the Underground Railroad, Frederick Douglass, abolitionists, okay? It's a big word, abolitionists, people who wanted to end slavery. And Frederick Douglass was one of those. They gathered together and planned how they can end slavery. So this house is a very special house in New Bedford. Lots of history. So that's another one of the houses I have on the list. But you can choose any one of the historic homes or buildings. Okay? So there you have it. Pop-up cards. So in part 3, we are going to do the cover of it, so we don't have the holes. We're going to do the cover and complete our card. Okay? So stay tuned. Bye-bye.